Hello guys, welcome to Module 2. This will be the Module 2 short lecture. And this week we're going to be evaluating programs that are found in local government. And so this week you have a couple of different things to do. You have a discussion assignment and then you have a short paper. So on the discussion assignment this week, you're going to be looking at government programs and services. And so this is what you're going to be looking at. The prompt says, of the various programs and services that are provided by the government's various departments, which ones would you consider to be the most important to the public, and why? If you were a public sector official, what steps would you take to ensure that your entity was providing the best possible services and programs to its constituents given the limited pool of resources? So the second half of this question basically is asking you, how do you go about determining whether or not, as a city official, city council member, for example, whether or not your city is offering the programs needed for your community, and and at what level are you doing so? All right, so that's the discussion board assignment, and that's going to be tied back to our textbook, where our author talks about the several different departments that are available within municipalities. And I'm just going to quickly go to this slide here and discuss and just highlight them real quick. And our author discusses city council, city manager, city clerk, legal services, finance department, fire department, health and human services, library, parks and recreation, planning and building, police, and public works. So these are your typical government programs and services. What you might want to do for this particular assignment is go and look at your local municipal government website and look at what type of programs and services are offered through your city. If you don't live in an incorporated area, but you live in a county area, then go to your county website and then you can see what type of government program and services are offered, okay? So again, you're going to be looking at which ones would you consider to be the most important to the public. So pick a couple and then explain why you believe those are the most important to the public. And then how would you evaluate that your city or county was providing the best possible services and programs to the citizens given the limited pool of resources. One of the things to always consider is that the public wants services, but they don't want to pay a lot for it. So how you go about doing that sometimes can be a balancing act. Technology has helped in a lot of ways in providing better services for citizens. You can use technology to pay your water bill online, for example. In some police departments, you can create your own report. Let's say maybe you have a petty theft, somebody stole your son's bicycle. There are some departments where you go online and you fill out the report yourself. All right, saves time and effort, and then you get the satisfaction of at least knowing that your report has been submitted to the police department. And so there's a lot of different ways in which government programs and services are offered. So again, go back and look at your local government entity, and then go onto their website, and then usually they'll have a heading that says departments, and go back and look at what departments your city has, right? Some cities aren't going to have legal services. Those are typically handled by a lawyer that's contracted with the city to provide those legal services, and usually those are attorneys that show up at council meetings to ensure that everything is legitimate and any legal questions pop up. Some local governments aren't into health and human services. In other words, that's usually a function of the county or in some cases the state. So here we're talking about those services that are offered to indigent people, maybe welfare or medical services, things such as that. So you may not find those at the local level. You may find those more at the county level or at the state level. But most of the others you will find in terms of finance, fire department, public works, police, building and planning, parks and recreation, library, and so forth. Okay, so our book is going to be your guide this week, so you're going to have to do some quick evaluation, either based on your personal experience in your own town or doing some research in our textbook to find out what type of services many of these programs, departments offer in the community. Okay, so basically what we're going to be talking about this week is the issue of public policy. When a legislative body such as a city council elects to either cancel a program or reduce services, it's creating public policy. Okay, so public policy is what public officials within government, and by extension the citizens they represent, choose to do or not to do about public problems. So in this case, for example, closing down the local swimming pool because of budget cuts, that becomes a public policy. Whatever happens with this particular issue becomes a public policy. So if they elect to shut down the local swimming pool during the summer because there aren't sufficient funds to operate and staff that local swimming pool, that's a public policy decision, okay? And so that's important to understand, because things that councils do when they adopt the budget, that's public policy. So it's important that you just understand this concept of public policy. Okay, so let me go here again, the government services. You're going to use your textbook. Your textbook will be a great guide for you as you go through and evaluate the different programs and departments within your local community, and again, try to identify which of those you think would be the most important. So pick 2 or 3 and then explain why. But at least pick 2. I think that would be the safe thing to do, so your classmates can have some ideas as to what's important in your community. Okay, now next, let's see what we got here. Next, we're going to be looking at the role of government on this particular slide, and trying to figure out what it is and what you think government is designed to do. Understanding what government is and its role should help you in evaluating your discussion board assignment this week. So in other words, what's the most important program? Now remember, government is formed by an association of citizens to provide self-governance within a clearly defined geographical area. That's what governance is. People electing to govern themselves, at least at the local level. You're always going to have, the states always, typically state law supersedes county and city laws. So, but it does allow you some level of independence. And so as you're thinking about what is the role of government, then I want you to think about the programs that government offers, and then which programs do you think are the most important, and then you're going to explain why. Okay, but what you need to understand as you look at some of these different departments and agencies that cities utilize is, it goes back to that basic of all questions, is what's the purpose of government? What is its role in our society? Is it protected citizens? Is it to ensure, we have clean water? There are an array of things that local government is responsible for. So give this some thought as you think about which programs do you think are more important, and then explain why to your classmates. Okay, now the last part of your discussion assignment for this week is, if you were a public sector official, what steps would you take to ensure that your city, county was providing the best possible services and programs to your community, given the limited pool of resources? So here, how do you determine whether or not your local government is doing what the people want it to do? And so basically you're evaluating your public services. So you can go back and evaluate the goals and objectives of the different departments, for example. So a fire department, for example, maybe one of their goals is to provide medical services. And an objective under that, providing medical services, is to respond to medical emergencies within the community within 5 minutes. All right. So those are the goals and objectives. So you can go back and evaluate those. You can look at internally the response times for the fire department and determine whether or not the fire department is meeting the objectives of a 5-minute response time for an emergency, okay, for a medical emergency call. And my 5 minutes is just an example. It's just something I pulled out of the air, okay? So that would be a way to evaluate. You're looking at the goals and objectives of the different departments that you have in the city, and then you're evaluating how they are performing based on those goals and objectives. So that's one way to do it. Obviously, communication, talking to the public, feedback from the public, comments regarding services. All right, so oftentimes during council meetings, people may come forward to complain about their dissatisfaction with a particular service. Or they may come forward to commend the city for something that happened or regarding a service that they received and how efficient and effective it was, okay? So these are just a couple of ways. We have evaluating public services maybe, and then communication, getting feedback from the public, people who call, people who write letters and complain, or people who generally overall discuss their feelings about the city and the services it provides. Okay, so that's how you're going to get some of this. And then, of course, you can always have public meetings outside of the city council, maybe some Q&A in the public at different times of the year or something like that. Okay, so that's the second half now. Now I just want to move and talk real quick about the assignment, the short paper this week, eliminating programs. It says, due to decreasing funding and or dwindling interest, a government believes that it must eliminate one of its programs. Detail a similar event that has taken place within a governmental program or service with which you are familiar. What steps does the government take prior to making its ultimate decision? So we're talking about local government here. So I will accept local government in the context of county, if you live in a county area, municipality, your city, or special districts, school districts, water district, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to just include all of these as part of local government, because some of you live in a county, some of you live in the city, and then many of you deal with special districts. Okay, so you may have to do some independent research and put your thinking cap on and go back and do some evaluation and come up with an event that's taken place that you are familiar with and the steps that the government took prior to making its ultimate decision. Okay, so I just want to walk you through some of the steps involved in the policymaking process to evaluate a program. So I just came up with a thing of eliminating school busing, which off and on becomes a very heated topic in some communities. So first thing you have to do is get the issue on the agenda. The agenda is something that is a guideline for either a council meeting or a school board meeting or a water district meeting, whatever the case is. But you need to get something on the agenda if you want that item addressed. In other words, this is a thing that needs action. So in order for something to get addressed, in other words, the local government legislative body needs to take a look at it, needs to get on the agenda. Okay? Document existing conditions. So in the case of our school bus, lack of sufficient funding. We budget the $10 million for school busing, and it's costing us $15 million. All right, so that's the issue. The issue is lack of sufficient funding for the program. Define the goals and objectives. Again, whenever you have an agency such as a school district, they'll have goals and objectives related to the busing program, and maybe it's, some of the objectives might be to bus and transport X amount of kids within the district. So you're going to have to look at goals and objectives. Then you got to generate some alternatives, an alternate bus route, alternate bus schedule. Maybe what you're going to do is students who live within 2 miles of the school have to walk to school. Those are the kind of things that generate alternatives. Identify your key interest groups. Students, parents, schools, officials, and representatives of the city are all key interest groups. Those people have a stake in the decision-making process. Evaluate alternatives, what those might be. Then you have to decide what you're going to do, and then you implement and monitor. Okay? So hopefully this helps as you begin to think about your short paper topic this week. Thanks, guys. Bye.